Alright, folks, welcome back. It is day 7 with WaniKani. 皆さん、お帰りなさい。今日は、7日目です。So, we're gonna do a little bit of different thing. I feel like we're gonna squeeze in a WaniKani session before our Monday, I guess, Neverwinter stream, right? Our Neverwinter session. We're in the review sesh now. We might be able to unlock. Yesterday, we might be able to unlock Yama, as long as I don't mess up. Got one radical. I'm very curious. It's an exciting time because now all the radicals are locked out, right? Or like briefly passed, I suppose. Hopefully, I'm gonna at least make sure this doesn't fall down. So, curious what happens after that, if something interesting happens. Oh, and also as a teaser, tomorrow, we're still gonna squeeze in WaniKani, but WaniKani is gonna go first. Again, tomorrow. I was thinking maybe I go second. I'll think about it then. Because I decided, you know what? It's time for me to take a bit of like a financial gamble and an investment. So in the last 2 or 3 days, I've been spending quite some time observing and reading some stuff here and there, trying to glean something from the developer. And I think I've come to a decision on how to find a companion piece for WaniKani. I've been sitting on it for a while, actually. Much like WaniKani, I've been sitting on WaniKani for maybe half of 2024. This one, it's about like the last quarter or thirds of 2024. So it's gonna be exciting because while I've been talking quite a lot about comparing WaniKani's design with Duolingo, right? And these are, for all intents and purposes, very specific use cases for myself personally. And I have to emphasize again that WaniKani, for me personally at the moment, and its intended design, is substituting for a platform of a way that I will be able to review and add to vocabulary and to character recognition. Once I'm not streaming anything, I am practicing. So the stuff that I'm practicing, I feel at this point, it's reached enough fundamentals that with the aid and contextual puzzles, like context offered by vocabulary, in increasing vocabulary or reinforced vocabulary, we can solve the other, use our fundamentals to collaboratively expand our like sentence construction and stuff. So we're reaching that state, and my Mandarin is a little bit further ahead in terms of like the fundamental structuring and whatnot. However, it will then enter a series of like vocabulary mining and sentence mining, in the sense of exploring more context so that I can use those contexts to piece the puzzles together, right? It's kind of like having what the puzzle piece represents. Like, for example, if you had a puzzle piece, right? And your fundamentals are these ridges, right? And then what's in here can be a little murky. So if I had more of these puzzle pieces, I can switch out, I can match two puzzle pieces or constantly try to bring two pieces together. And the ones that are closer, these ridges will help explain the structure and grammar and normalization, right? By pure understanding of bouncing off the context. So I'm conservatively and safely going to say, which I'm going to say most of this thing tomorrow for my companion piece. WaniKani fits a lot of things. There are, I forgot to mention this in my summary of day ones of WaniKani. I am in a state of vocabulary discovery now. I can earnestly say conservatively I'm beyond a beginner, right? Maybe early intermediate, intermediate or middle intermediate. Like, the idea is with foundations, I go out to explore. One routine that is very concise and often wonderful for me is an aspect of video gaming. So what I mean by video gaming is I have foundations in video games, right? Like, you have that, pick up a controller, you know what your inputs are, you read the interactions, those are the foundations. However, the content is what you're consuming now, right? You're mining repetitiously and or novelty seeking to expand based on context. And WaniKani is a great way to fill that void in the sense of an emotional parasocial attachment. Like, yes, you can also substitute it with Anki. In fact, that's probably what I'm going to say in the future, where when someone says, oh, well, I don't want to pay for WaniKani, or like, I don't really have an attachment to any form of mnemonics. I find, or like, I have a, if someone says like, yeah, I like making up my own ideas and I think I'm creative enough to do that, I would point you towards Anki a little bit, because Anki has the customization of mnemonics and stuff. There are some bells and whistles in WaniKani. However, you would need to pull up a companion notebook. It's kind of like Duolingo, right? Things that it doesn't do and things that it do have done, you can modify it for sure. I chose this because of people. Not necessarily, like, one of the biggest motivations in day one's choices are people inspire me to do things. And right now it's coming to a foot because Koichi's content, like the way he's writing mnemonics and the way like it's really weird and stretched out, and then now I'm like bringing in my own thing, that's like playing video games. Sure, you can definitely play a FromSoft game and beat it and say like, yes, I beat it, this is my character. Or you can be like me and I'm playing it and say, I wonder why the developer decided to put this landmark here. Well, that's interesting. Let's just brainstorm about how do I feel about this. That's how I play video games. My attachment to the game is not necessarily completely restricted to the, I guess, the quote-unquote objective and subjective observations of myself, right? You can say, oh, objectively this game is so and so, and then subjectively, how do I feel about these observations? That's fair. I know myself kind of well, and sometimes when I think and place myself in the other person's shoes, it helps discover more about myself, because I think about 30 plus years, people can surprise me about myself more than myself surprises myself. I am fairly comfortable in my own skin. So this is kind of the WaniKani experience, right? If I pulled up an Anki deck, yes, you can probably still surmise some of the things that the person made the deck, right? There's some idiosyncrasies, maybe the way they format, the way they I would still end up using Anki in that way to elevate my curiosity. But WaniKani does just a wee bit more, because mnemonics is a form of storytelling. And the story that I'm looking for is Ko's story as a person who clearly wants to invest a large part of their life bringing Japanese to a Western audience, Westernized audience, for in all honesty, outside, like people coming into Eastern language, right? So that's awesome. And sure enough, I'm going to go into this tomorrow about our companion piece. This leaves a void for Mandarin, right? I want something that exudes someone else's personality or creativity in the sense of a package, and I want to support that vision. And it's related to WaniKani, so that's why I'm saying it here. It goes without saying, it's one of those things where like, oh yeah, I could see it. I could see the transition or like the influence and stuff, but they bring their own story. And that's why I love storytelling games, right? Yes, mechanically, which a lot of people make this comment. I was going to save this for the Neverwinter stream, but I brought a couple stories for my Neverwinter stream. To keep it short, WaniKani as a smaller project relatively speaking to like Duolingo and stuff, have inspired someone else who for the last couple years use their inspiration to leap off into a different direction. I'm already seeing some interesting design directions, right? And then those design directions seem to be a lot of times the focus of an introspective person. Someone who says like, oh, well, WaniKani offers 3,000 characters. This offers 2,000 characters. Well, 3,000 is bigger than 2,000. That type of thing. That's well and good. And I think you can probably find a lot of content creators who will industrialize and hammer those things out. For myself, the companion piece to WaniKani, there's a story how I got to tomorrow's companion piece that will inevitably fill the void of my vocabulary mining, and it's not Anki. So for the record, and hats off to all the Anki deck builders, right? The people who make decks. I hope that if you dig deep enough, you go on a forum, you can learn about the deck builder. Personally, I enjoy deck building. Building a video game is building a deck. Language learning with Japanese is building a deck. The deck's up here, right? So if you want a visualization, I would love for someone to convince me that is not the case, that a deck builder and the Anki community views things hyper objectively, which is great for proficiency and performance. However, if they told me that there's a deck that someone imbued their personality, spirit, and let it become flourishingly creative, which, by the way, is a risk that the person making it have to take, because not everyone's going to agree with you, not everyone's going to resonate with you, and that is why I enjoy creative products at their expense, because for me, you're going to be a winner if you try to be creative with your product. The fundamentals are the fundamentals. If your game slash like a FromSoft game, dodge roll like a FromSoft game, but you tell a story that's yours, it's not a FromSoft game. To me, personally, it's the creativity and charm and the human spirit, the human touch is in my opinion, the highest intellectual platform. It might not seem that way, and of course I'm gonna have to concede to those wonderful developers out there that if you tell a wonderful story, oftentimes the hyper objective world that we live in for performance and selfishness, that's normalized, might not be able to appreciate that. But for me, hats off to WaniKani's dev and the devs that they inspire, like tomorrow's dev. It's kind of funny because it's also a two-person party thing, interestingly enough, red enough that I'm like teasing really hard. I think I feel the same way about Ko, and I'm not sure how often Viet posts, but I know Ko is quite verbal over the many years of Tofugu and whatnot. But anyways, thought I mentioned that. It's a really lovely story. If later on during Neverwinter, if I see a little bit of the peeps, I'll probably bring up the story. plenty of stories, right? I wouldn't be sharing my language learning experience if it would be remiss of me, or a great missed opportunity, if I made myself look like any other person using WaniKani or any other person using Anki. If I wanted that, I wouldn't be sharing it, right? Or logically speaking, it would be less compelling to share it. All right. 17 reviews. Wait, you know what? I didn't count the rows in this. 6. Wait, how many are in a row? 6, 9, 12. Okay, so it's 15 per row. So we have 17. Interesting. There's 17. But I see 18 items. Huh. Okay. Alright. Let's pop in on this. Reminder to myself, how did I pepped? I have to remind myself for a sec. How did I pep 7? Oh, I got it confused with cookie. Oh, and I remember what the cookie mnemonic is. The cookie and cucumbers. When you were 9, one of your favorite things are cookies and cucumbers. That's how they related to 9. 7 was... Oh, she cheated. Right. Alright, so let's hop in here. Alright. So we have enter. Right, yeah. She cheated, so she. And now the mnemonics, I'm shortcutting the mnemonics. So as I continue to hear more of the mnemonics that Ko has written, or whoever has written, I'm gonna end up compressing it. So both orally and written, I'm gonna continue to compress and use my shorthand speech. So to keep up with the increasing volume, right? Until it's not manageable, then we come up with a new system to compress and layer, like mentally speaking. Let's see. So I gotta get used to the type as of the print. So we have enter. This is the new TP, right? New. Oh, yes. And got to admit, kanji read. It's Ko and construction. And then we have the ka. No, I'm just kidding. The power. I think we still can go with power. Let's go with industry. Oh no, not power. Wait, let's go with strength. We gotta enter the alternative stuff too. Let's see. 8. We have the meaning, which is 8. 8 fins, right? Or fish with the 8 fins. And then we have industry. Right, industry. 9. 9 is the cookies and cucumbers. When I was 9, right? When 1 is 9. I did quite like cookies and cucumbers. I don't think we necessarily had access to that many. So, so the cross, 10 commandments, right? The 10 jewel crusted cross, right? So Jew. And 2 knees, right? 2 knees. At knee. 8. The hachi. Hachi. The hatch. 10, right? 10 commandments. I was gonna make a comment about, actually it's related to WaniKani. So I've already come here's a criticism that will happen with people who provide mnemonics or stories or write anything creative. From a creative standpoint, like from a developer or someone who proofreads things and write things, being able to negotiate things that are a character criticism, like a personality character criticism, versus like a period generational character criticism versus constructive criticism, right? Like objective, quote unquote, objective construction criticism. Oftentimes, to delineate these is very important. So, I am, to as full clarity, my criticisms about like if I resonate, if I empathize or not, are neither negative or positive. Usually I try to leverage as much as I can. So if it's very helpful, it's positive. When it's negative, it means I'm lacking experience, which it's not a negative criticism for the developer. It's an curiosity for myself. This is not, in my opinion, the usual case for consumers, especially consumers who are either paying for a subscription because they paid up front. It's exceptionally true about consumers that pay up front for something versus a consumer that is using a freemium product. Although even on the note of freemium products, consumers have expectations. And one of the expectations is that if you're selling a story, which is mnemonics is like a much more compartmentalized version of a story. If you're selling creative aspects, especially story or aesthetics and whatnot, consumers have expectations that they must empathize with it in order to be satisfied. Like, we're not talking about everyone. We're talking about the statistical normalized behavior, at least in my opinion, is that it must be empathetic or universally relatable, in the sense of people don't need to learn to relate to it oftentimes now, but they need to relate to it as a generality. So what do I mean by this? I already mentioned this a couple times when we learned the first bulk of the mnemonics. There are going to be times when I say, oh, that's a bit of a stretch. Yeah, like shi. I stopped at shi because this was one of them. The mnemonic was imagine someone you loathe. And my first thought is, then that's when I spent like 30 minutes talking about how I loathe myself most, but it would not get me to shi, right? When I was younger, right? Nowadays, I rarely even, ironically, not only did I have not time to loathe people when I was younger, I rarely expend any of my precious energy loathing someone else. For me, it's counterproductive. Like, if you spend time looming and like glooming over anyone who dislikes you or you dislike them, that's a lot of excess energy. There are ways to address and cope and channel it towards other creative process. So when one becomes very effective at doing that, rarely does it result in loathing people. So this would be somebody on a forum would say, hey, your mnemonic sucks. I can't relate to it. Like, why didn't you choose something else that more people can relate to? And by more people, they mean people like them. Whether it's a lot or small or the majority, it's a generality that happens, right? It's kind of like a journalist who strongly have to rate the story. However, they try to rate it in the terms of its mechanical objectivity, like how long the story is, how interconnected, and then they are journalists who apply an op-ed disclaimer, like, oh, does the story resonate with me? And then they have to exercise their professional courtesy of saying, well, how relatable it is to a larger audience or the target audience, right? You got to frame all this. This would play into mnemonics too, right? I don't find imagining someone I loathe cheating and getting a low score and feeling righteous indignation about it, right? Or like some justice or karma or something. However, I can understand that that may resonate with quite a substantial amount of people. Actually, it might actually be a very apt example for the internet culture. So when you're targeting the internet audience, I think the vast majority of people can kind of relate to that twinge of satisfaction of seeing someone you don't like doing something that technically is bad, and then feel a little karma on it. And that's what I mean, the balance between like my subjectivity and a little over understanding of others, and then how that relates to criticism. For me, it's effective. Not for me. However, I think of constructively, right? I can't relate to this. So how can I take this person's understanding of their mnemonics, like whatever they're portraying, like whatever Ko is writing, and how can I get myself in that mind space so I can add a bit of myself, right? In that way, whatever Ko writes is constructively useful for me, and then I don't inherently feel something negative about it. Like, oh man, I just paid for someone who used an example, etc. It's like, I don't necessarily think that's the case, right? So that's kind of a touchy point, and it's kind of the theme of all my short stories, especially for tomorrow, because this goes into the territory of the / language learner who diminishes someone else's product by saying, oh, it's a cookie cutter thing, you know, there's like 10 of these, and there's 10 of these, they're all the same. And when they say they're all the same or they're all similar, they're basically, to me, and I know combating generalities with another generality, the idea is they prioritize objective metrics. So when they say, oh, like Duolingo is a cookie cutter platform, oh, this is another cookie cutter platform, they're focusing on their objective, which is how proficient and efficacious or the mechanical methods differ from those two. If they don't differ substantially, it's a cookie cutter thing. Basically, it's one person lifting the foundations into another person who's competing with it. That is actually, in my opinion, a logical stepping point on how products improve without with mitigating loss. So without competition, if those cookie cutter things don't exist, right, there are no juxtaposition, consistency, or standardizations of which you can improve upon. Instead, you would have things like this, where imagine if WaniKani decides, oh, they will inspire, and then the next person decide, oh, this is what I think WaniKani should be like, and it's nothing like WaniKani, and then they add their own story on top, and then they're saying our product is like WaniKani but better. Then you have apples and oranges. That does not create consistency. It creates novelty, which I really, really like, you know, like the indie scene. However, or generally like the indie scene. However, those individuals, when they say that, it screams to me that that's the population I'm talking about. Whether you add a creative twist to it, write funny stories and funny mnemonics, if they don't hit, then you're a cookie cutter. If they do hit, then you're the unique thing, you're the most unique thing since sliced bread, right? And it's something that I think about all the time, trying to be in the shoes of a developer that might be managing something like Duolingo. For WaniKani, not so much. WaniKani has a very specific target audience, and if Ko can resonate with this target audience, which I think Ko was a language, I don't know how Ko is going about it. However, their mission statement would suggest that almost the entire staff understands this journey. So their journey represents a specific generation. And that generation, all the examples that you'll have is a projection of Ko's understanding of what the generation of Japanese language learners are like, right? And that creates that empathy. You don't necessarily have to think about world opinions and market shares and business PR and whatnot and being topical, right? That's the Duolingo's group's responsibility, right? They are juggling something vastly different, right? And sure enough, I gravitate towards these. So I really like people who are, so mind you, this is a bias because I have been approached like, why don't you use a product that's made by a native Japanese speaker, native born in Japan, and because native Japanese speakers would know what you need to know about speaking Japanese, so the products that they make are authentic and they're the best, right? I forgot to address this point. The question is, am I Japanese? Do I want to be a Japanese native speaker? Do I resonate with a native Japanese experiences? If they start writing stories and stuff, do they focus on Americanized culture in order to make Japanese culture approachable? The question you have to ask yourself is, if you are looking to be Japanese, to also abandon all your empathy for your own identity and then fully embrace theirs, that's because it's part of you, like you want to engross in. That works. It's great. For myself, I like that the WaniKani developers are not that. So that comes with the pros and cons, right? From the outside perspective, it comes with, oh, this is kind of an English speaker thing, and like, oh, when you're using these examples, right? These examples, like, this is more like an American example, like, and so forth, right? And the idea is I pick products if I'm able to understand the developers, largely due to the nature that I'm looking for specific people, right? People that will help me bridge into another. Like, I'm like the person who's looking for the quote unquote perfect native speaker that also can resonate with them. So if this question has been asked quite a bit, like, have you spoken to a native Japanese person? And my answer is yes, I've spoken at a native Japanese speaker, and a native Japanese speaker has spoken at me. Rarely were we speaking with each other, largely due to the nature that the person that is talking to me is not interested in my culture, and I am the one that's interested in their culture. Like, they just happen to know the mechanical nature of the Japanese language that helps inform me. However, for me, it's not their responsibility to be interested in my culture. I happen to coincidentally want to connect with someone who is mutually interested, because it's culture exchange so much as language exchange. One way to understand all of this is tomorrow, which I'll explain why I chose tomorrow's product as a more or less an investment gamble, because their story is, I could be a sap, I'm a little gullible for these, so people could use the bias against me. I'm a sap for someone who is either diaspora or they are voluntarily engaging in another culture that is not their own, and they share the vision of bridging the cultural gap, as in they believe the culture that they're interested in is beautiful, and they want to bring the people that are from their culture to be interacting with the culture of their target interest. It's very different from someone who comes up to you and find it easy to tell you, hey, you shouldn't learn Japanese from non-native Japanese speakers and people who aren't born in Japan because they don't know what they're talking about. Like, well, clearly you also don't know or care about people who are interested in Japanese culture and language, because you just decided to marginalize them. And guess who's part of that group? Me. So when someone comes up and you're wondering, like, why do I necessarily have a dismissive tone or like skepticism, it's largely because you were able to in my opinion, it makes it very obvious from deductive reasoning and message that you do not even consider me or respect me as someone of value or valuable competence, because you've already marginalized the group I belong to, as opposed to saying, hey, I like Japanese culture too. You know, that person doesn't even self-acknowledge themselves most of the time that they're learning a language and a culture. Somehow they identify as a group that I can earnestly and honestly tell you, in an Asian country, you are not one of them. Like, technically speaking and spiritually speaking. And I don't think that's a bad or a good thing. It can be a very bad thing if you so desire to be that and you have no control over it, right? Or like you don't feel like you have the last one because you're interacting with other people. So this all feeds back to my thoughts. I was going to talk about in Neverwinter again, and tomorrow. Tomorrow is going to be, it's the main core topic. So I've been working up on how to be professionally somewhat neutral, but also reveal my biases. I absolutely love when people make products who try to express their interest to bringing and collectively bringing people of different cultures together. It's incredibly beautiful. And if that means not necessarily being native Japanese like or Native American like, Native American, like American like, or ABC, like American born Chinese, I am biased towards that because that's what I kind of identify as, right? It's kind of hard to shed the skin of being an American born Chinese when I'm quite literally an American born Chinese. Hello there, Echo. I'm doing really well. We're squeezing in our WaniKani, since it's a review, before our Neverwinter stream today, our Neverwinter session today. However, I brought a lot of stories for Neverwinter, and I felt that it was far more appropriate to share this about WaniKani. It really does focus on the mnemonics, the thing that separates WaniKani from an Anki deck, right? And I don't think Ko goes out to advertise this. However, Morrow's product does go and advertise this because they have to draw comparisons and apples and oranges and address the whole situation. And I thought the developers, the two developers, especially one of them, is a very well down to earth and kind of differentiate this. And it's a topic that I missed on to mention. I did not mention this in day one about some of the draws of what I picked. I sort of touched upon it, like why WaniKani. If someone asked, like, why did I personally choose WaniKani? If I had to sum it up, a lot of the major points in day one, people are why I choose WaniKani. And then you know, where does that come from? It's when I keep getting asked, when people say, why do you use Duolingo? Like, why do you start Duolingo? Why do you want to finish Duolingo? People. And that's a large answer. Looking forward to it. I like what you said a few days ago about investing in people behind a product. Yeah, like, hear me out. Invest in an objectively useful product if it's something you need, you know, you consistently need. So like, what I mean is, it's okay to be objective and professional when, say, food safety is involved. Like, there, you got to be able to discriminate a bottom line, or like your health, your personal health, things that you need, like job consistency and whatnot. However, we're here when we're talking about this type of product, we're choosing to do that. And there's no amount of motivation and you want it to work and like you're going to try harder if you try to get closer to the people involved. Like not that you can literally, because those are interpersonal connections, right? You can use your parasocial relationship that you have, which people are experts at this point at establishing parasocial relationships because you do it all the time on YouTube and content creation. Some people rather write comments and they may or may not ever know that they exist from a YouTuber, from a content creator standpoint, or like a person who makes a product that's really wonderful like WaniKani, and Ko may never know you exist. However, you yourself can leverage that, right? If you get really, you're like, oh man, Ko is such a, I see what you did there, Ko. Like I'm talking to myself, technically, a projection of what I think Ko would be resonating with. And what happens is I get more out of his mnemonics because I'm like, oh, okay. You sit around I stopped at Shi because of his mnemonic that he chose. I just sit there, I can imagine my drinking coffee and a hypothetical Ko is on the other end. It's like, who's the girl? That's literally how I'm remembering right now, figuratively and literally in my head. That's how I'm remembering the mnemonic for Shi. I'm just imagine, Ko's at the end. It's like sipping. It's like, Ko, I gotta ask, who is the girl that cheated? And then, what was the 7%? Is this a classmate? You don't have to tell me. You don't have to tell me her name, but listen. Let's have a talk. Can you give me a little bit more details? Like, what was the exam? And I wanted to ask you, how does someone cheat and still get 7%? Did you ever find out? And then, what I'm expecting is, oh, there was like sort of an example, and then he might have read a newspaper and like someone else's story, and then I'm invested. Like, and then I'm invested. Like, tell me more. Like, the greatest thing about someone's creative product that has a semblance of themselves is when you get to meet them, right? If you get to interview them, if you bump into them, you legitimately have something to ask them, and they will be interested, and they will know you already love their products. Like an introverted, quote unquote, I'm a little generalizing, an introverted perspective, someone who only cares about themselves and like are not invested in a mutual thing, that's okay. They're very efficient, they're very objective or maybe subjective about themselves. When they go, in my opinion, to bump into them, they're like, oh, I love your stuff. I've already have 3,000 day streak. Like, I live and breathe this. I even make content. Do you want to see my content? That's very different from someone who is both invested in themselves and the product that they like and the people that they like. Because if you bump into them, they would be more like, wait, hold up. Shh. I need to collect my thoughts. Sorry, I have so many questions about your product. Like, I love this part of it. Can you explain to me why you chose this example? Because like every day I see this example and I'm using this mnemonic every day. I want to know, who is the girl that cheated? And then, you hear the truth and it's like maybe some sobering thing where it's like, oh no, I thought I read some on newspaper or some Reddit post, and like, oh, well, that's interesting. What kind of, like, do you usually collect mnemonics off Reddit posts? Because that would be a great idea. Maybe I should try it. That kind of thing, right? Oh yes, when you're doing all this, we're definitely towards the top of Maslow's pyramid. Yes, the criteria are not the same as when addressing needs at the bottom regarding your examples on food safety. Yeah, exactly. So right now, I stopped here because I couldn't resist talking about this. When you're trying to form, even with your hypothetical deduction of someone, your memory shoots, like, it becomes, to me, it's almost effortless. However, initially, if you're not used to doing this, there's an input, right? There's an input effort. There's a barrier effort. Creating emotional attachments to things that you create yourself, even if it's an extension of a deduction, is you placing additional weight and effort on it, right? And honestly, those things tend to be the most vivid. Whether it's hypothetical, it's a creative process. You are constructing something out of a deduction. So when you observe something, that is passive. When you start thinking about it, that's getting a little bit more active. And then when you construct something out of it, as in a creative process, then that is a fully activated process. And that improves, in my opinion, likely will improve integration of the memory. So as silly as it sounds, when you complain about something, that's an active process. You are if one is just responding with visceral anger, like a jerk reflex, largely passive, maybe a little normalized condition. When you explain why this product sucks, that is a constructive and active process. So when I know humans are weird, we're programmed, we're quote unquote have a high tendency of doing this very effectively. If you complain about a product, if you talk about a product with someone else, you are more likely to remember it, largely due to the nature that when you're explaining it to someone or explaining it to yourself, it's an active, constructive process. And I refuse to forget the mnemonic for this. Yes, so I will not call this kanji ku for a very long time, hopefully. Hopefully, taking into account like human error. Oh, so you did see that I wrote ku instead yesterday. Yeah, I was like, oh no, I got the cucumber and cookies mnemonic confused with the she cheated. Anyways, here we go. Yeah, you got me. You know what I had to say to that? Joe Mama. And Joanne. All right. With all that said, it was great. I'm so pumped. All right. Okay. So now we have the River of Cars, right? The River of Cars. 9 years old, right? 9 years old. I love cookies and cucumber. So we'll just use ku for today. Ku. The car wash, right? That's why the cars were flowing down the river, right? Whoops. Power, for the read, locking Riki, right? Locking Riki up. So we'll use Riki this time. And 2. What was 2? 2 shot 1, but we're more in the idea of what did 2 do other than shoot 1? Oh, 2 is for knees, right? You need support. And support comes with 2 knees. Right, that's right. Oh, don't you dare take a knee. Ichi, right, Ichi, because that pep that you tried to save coughed all over you. I'm honestly, my question for Ko is, what were they imagining? Like, what was the thing that makes you excruciatingly itchy and painful? I'm off. Like, I'm imagining a scene, by the way, from a sci-fi show. Like, what I mean is a very specific scene. Like, many specific scenes. I watch a lot of dystopian sci-fi, largely because it tickles my scientific background. Like, how the portrayal of, like, infectious diseases and pathogenic viruses and whatnot. The most recent I watched was the second season of Sweet Tooth, or third season of Sweet Tooth, and one of it is it's transmitted, it's aerosolized, and one of the symptoms is pinky. Oh, actually, I think it concluded. Now that I think about it, it's a shaking pinky. So not quite itchy, but symptom. Let's see, Ko's beautiful, voluptuous mouth. You know, I'm without a doubt, maybe at the Inktober, when we get to Inktober, which is October, by the way, I'll probably draw Ko. That's got to be one of the prompts, since this is going to be the year of WaniKani and the companion piece. The mnemonics, we're gonna frame all our Inktober prompts around the mnemonics that we've developed, like, over time with other people's inspiration, especially Ko's inspiration. We're gonna draw and envision and try to encapsulate some of the stuff for our artwork. Last year was doing things that related to Chinese and Japanese, like landmarks and culture and spiritualism, right? Because last year was language learning for the two. This year we might end up turning all our mnemonics into Inktober prompts. It's so effective. All right. So Ko, right? Got his voluptuous lips. I wonder if I can write lips, actually. Hold up. I don't think I can write lips, right? No. Okay. What was 3? Let's see. Santa-san? Yeah. Don't be naughty. You got 3 chances. Santa-san. Toe in the ground. Toe in the ground. Dig into a ka, right? Ge is the other thing, but they said ge until a little bit later, so that's fine. And big, tie-dye, right? Big guy with a tie-dye shirt who suspiciously sound like Joe with the big toe, who also is a farmhand that is married to Joanne, right? And you know, we're starting to collect our own conspiracy theories. We're spinning our own conspiracy theories about this mystery character, and whether it's wrong or not, we're gonna end up having either 2 Joes or 1 Joe, or 3 Joes. You know, my Joe and then their Joe, and then we're gonna make a JoJo reference. I haven't seen JoJo, but I just thought I'd throw that out there. Maybe I should watch JoJo now. All right. So tie-dye, right? We'll do dye. And then toes above ground, which is strange, right? Strange, but I kind of drew an image, a mental image of a foot sticking out of the ground as the cover to Plant vs. Zombies. Plant vs. Zombies, there's a very characteristic, like, advertisement where you see, like, sunny lawns and, like, sunflowers and stuff, and then when the hands show up, it's the very characteristic zombie, you know, the zombie thing, and all I can imagine is just a foot sticking up with a gigantic toe. Like, all the toes are missing except for the big toe. That's kind of my image of the mnemonic that they were describing. So the toe, right, it's Joe's big toe. So yo. And above, there are quite a lot. We'll stick with above. Yeah, we'll stick with it. Actually, what were the other ones? Like over, up. Fair enough. We'll do above today. And then person. Person. Oh, the person that complained about the gene policy at Nintendo. Which I feel could potentially be Joanne. Because Joanne, since we already know that Joe is a farmhand and moonlights as a painter, I feel Joanne would be very appropriate to be someone who's complaining about the gene policy at Nintendo. That's where I'm putting Joanne at the moment. So, Neen, right? And then a big tie-dye man. Or large. Sure. And we have below. Or under. Right, underground. This is Joe Mama. It sounds like an insult, but it's not. I'm saying Joe Mama is a woman, you know? Right? Right? Who's Joanne? One got shot. I think one is gonna make it out though. One's gonna make it out. It's fine. They're gonna pull through. Yeah, of course we know. What else would it be? Okay. And then something. Oh, whoa. I gotta be careful not to write reads on meanings. Alright, no more reviews. I didn't get Yama. I mean, Mounted. What? What? Ko, please. I didn't get it. Oh, okay. So today we're not. Alright. So for today's session, we're not gonna get Mountain. I failed Yama so hard. Oh, I failed Mountain so hard. The Mountain Radical so hard. So hard that I didn't get a chance to get Yama today. Feels bad, man. It's all good. We've already added it to our thing. So how are we? If you hover on a radical or kanji, you will see when it comes out. Oh, really? Let me see. Oh, review in about 2 hours. Oh, okay. Oh, that's because yesterday I came back late. That's right. Yesterday I did it at 8. So it's still gonna hit that. Well, you know, we do it tomorrow. No hurries. Yago, I'm glad you're using WaniKani. Good luck in your journey. Well, thank you. Thank you. I hope your journey is going well as well. The good old WaniKani spirit. I really do enjoy it. So far, you guys are bolstering the statistics, my hidden statistics right now, on individuals who use WaniKani and how they interact. Be part of the statistic. No, I'm kidding, of course. I appreciate the kind words. Arigatou gozaimasu. So on the right hand panel, you should see something on the yeah. So, oh, so I can like click. Wait, today is okay. So that's what the today the wait. How do I read this? So at 1 there's +1. So this is the forecast. Oh, now I know how to read this. I did have a problem reading this, and I thought I would figure it out eventually, but thanks for it. Now that, oh, so it means I have 1 at 8 p.m. local time. Ah, and that 1 is probably Yama or Mountain. Ah, yeah, interesting. Ooh, Saturday is fun. That's so neat. I like this. Thank you for clarifying, by the way. I had a hard time understanding this the last couple of days. I'm like, wait, does this mean that okay, +1 plus, oh, that's so interesting. Okay. We'll learn to brainstorm about how that works later. Let's do our last ritual, right? Our last ritual is man down. Go grab some people with 2 knees. One of them might be Santa-san. If not, jeez. Don't get anyone that cheats. How does this work? Go and buy some fish from the hatch? And maybe bring some cookies and cucumber along, you know, for number one's recovery. And yeah, go grab a priest as well, in case the number one doesn't make it. Right? We need some clergymen. All right, so those are all our number units. What else we got? We got some pairs here. Our number one is gonna either be above ground, stay above ground, or below ground, with and without their toes. And maybe, just maybe, a person, maybe, just maybe, a person who happens to be potentially Joe Mama knows something about a big guy who might actually be oh dang it, I think I've lost my ability. Who might be, what else can I, what we could say, like the person, oh no, I can't create a new thing on the fly. I can't improvise a new thing on the fly. It might be a guy, a big guy with fantastic pair of lips, right? And also works in construction. That happens to be next to the river when they found the cars a car that was floating down from the mountainside. I missed a few. What else can we pigeonhole in here? When the person enters the hospital room, right? When they enter the hospital room, is that everything? Did we get everything on a makeshift thing? Let's see. Check, check, check. Check. Check, check. Check. Oh, strength. All right. This guy with the this guy that works in construction is very likely to be strong. Right. Very likely to be strong. Okay. Check, 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 check. Okay. Fun fact, for items in the first 2 levels, review intervals are half of the first 4 stages. Nice. That's a very reasonable approach. Tomorrow's product has some wild customizations. So it's interesting because it really reflects the developer, which I will talk about later, or the impression I get from the 2 developers. Because there's a big contrast between someone who's been in this game like Ko and company been in this game for like over a decade, like, or more, because of Tofugu, versus someone who's new to the game, right? You have that, how you say, junior faculty versus senior faculty situation, at least from me anecdotally, when I'm seeing it. And it's wonderful to have two different perspectives on a mechanically foundationally relatable foundation, like the mechanical side. So especially in the beginning, WaniKani allows you to do multiple reviews per day. For example, you took 4 days to complete and another 4 days to complete level 2. Not saying this is good or bad thing to do, by the way. I was just eager to unlock more quickly. Yeah, me too. Me too. Obviously, my eagerness is to do more and more shenanigans. Obviously, this is how I go about things, and having more and more opportunities to make fall off the hinges. Like, I'm not even, like, if you're thinking about it, the way I've made and encompass all of this, I wasn't looking over here, by the way. The moment I looked over is the moment I was looking to see if I cover everything. So this is my mnemonic that I came up with on the spot that relates all the characters, using and piggybacking on the mnemonic that has already established. And most of these can be consistently shuffled around. Like tomorrow, if I were to recap all my line of thought, it'd be a different way. The idea is that there's semblances of context that overlap, but now you're like meandering about, right? That's kind of the idea of having conversation and creating things and blending things and deconstructing and reconstructing. So this is something that I technically do in the beginning of Duolingo and the end of Duolingo. However, it's a lot more mechanical because there's a lot of things to cover. And I imagine this will likely change from your fun fact in the future, largely due to potentially interest of time. WaniKani is not that great if you want to learn many kanji very quickly, because you get a lot of vocabulary as well that also shows up in review. Interesting. Another objective thought, I suppose. You use the word many. I think it will require a reevaluation of that statement. If I want to learn many kanji, right? So you use the word you. Now, I guess the question you might want to ask yourself when you say that is, how many for me is many, right? Oh, and then you have also very and also quickly. So that requires a rate of speed. It would be interesting to know what you consider as quickly. What is the rate as quickly? And what do you know about me? Right. These are the things that would probably be outside of the objective category, but back into the subjective category. But I understand what you mean. It clearly, WaniKani was not fast enough for you. It's probably what I gathered from that commentary. We'll find out. We'll find out if I learn kanji quickly or not. Yeah. Duolingo was pretty interesting. Duolingo was averaging 15 to 60 kanji every 3 days for my schedule. So, yeah, this seems okay. Every 4 or 5 days, I kind of like it so far. All right. And then maybe if it slows down, it means I can do other things. It could also be argued that vocab reinforces the kanji learning process in addition to, yes. Looking at kanji objectively is a great way, I would say. It's an appropriate way to compare the progress with other resources. So, for example, you're probably going to say something about Anki, because Anki is purely personalized. So, when you look at kanji, not connected to anything, right? Not connected to your aspect of mnemonic development, your integration process. If you're strictly talking about someone who's looking at rote learning as their basis, or learning raw speed, rote memory, if you got it, if 100% of your rote memory is 1-to-1, anything closer to the unadulterated rote learning is probably the fastest. Now, the question is, you're going to have to consider the idea that if they didn't introduce kanji at a rate that you find great, what are you spending your time doing? Now, you could, and I like to gather and deduce from your comment, is that all the other time reviewing is a waste of time, or it does not contribute to your kanji objective, right? Then they no longer have useful value. Like, for example, me doing this does not have a useful value to someone who does not value it, where I would reconstitute the mnemonic, and the pace of this is allowing me to construct and deconstruct my mnemonic over and over again. So when I'm reviewing, am I actually doing the reviewing the same as you are or the other person? The answer, in my opinion, conservatively, is a resounding absolute no. Not even in the neighborhood. In fact, when I review, I construct and deconstruct. So I actively recall and reconstruct my recall. That leaves time for me to do that. So if you choose, right, if it's not great for learning many kanji, then, and you're suggesting that it shows up in review, the answer is, are you doing the same exact thing every time you review? Because then, yeah, it probably feel like you're not making any kanji progress. My first 7 days, not a single day went by that the review was the same. And nor do I talk to Gecko about the same thing every day. So review process also opens up the opportunity to solidify or integrate, so you don't necessarily have to go back and review it later on. Different perspectives to consider. I honestly understand your perspective quite a lot when it comes to kanji objective. If that is the most important priority for you, it's an excellent point, and I probably have no problems believing that you don't think it's great to be introduced in many kanji. In fact, I was that Duolingo user that was fine with not learning more than one kanji every unit for the first 180 days before they decide to switch over and introduce 15 kanji every day after section 3 unit 37, largely because I was working on something else, right? I can definitely both think what your comment is true. At the same time, I would like to introduce the reason why, if you're not getting a lot of kanji, you can do something else with it. If they decided to introduce kanji like mad, then I won't have time to do anything else, right? Like, I won't have time to talk and rant about this right now and find it so fun or something, because you won't have time to think about it. One deep cut that I want to give about this is, there are times when you work and hyper focus so much because it's not moderated, that you lose sight of the sentimental value altogether. So what does that look like? The reason why The reason why I would say that is that that's the impression I get from Anki users. Anki users prioritize how quickly they get through their kanji objective. And for myself, I do not develop a lot of pleasure from that. I like spending my time talking to people and, coffee talk. Especially when trying to recall readings for a particular kanji, once you kind of move past the mnemonic stage for that kanji, it usually helps me to recall vocab items that this kanji appears in. We'll see. We'll see. I will be interested to see how I end up experiencing it. More on that. We can chat about it in the future, Gecko. No spoil. You get to spoil a little bit about it. Considering your progress on Duolingo, do you think it'll be easier for me progressing in WaniKani? Well, WaniKani and Duolingo don't do the same things, so I can't separate the progress. Much like I can't separate the mnemonics from the rate of kanji introduction. Holistically, whatever I do in Duolingo will help my progress in WaniKani, and whatever I learn in WaniKani will help my progress in Duolingo. Yesterday when I was doing my recall session on my WaniKani, I used the mnemonics when I was recalling specific things in Duolingo. So like I was already making Joe Mama jokes and talking about ko over and over again when I'm using Duolingo. I take a holistic approach most of the time. This might sound cliche. Lots of people describe what I'm describing in their own terms most of the time. Language learning to me is the epitome of amalgamating all of your learning strategies and synthesis together. The more holistic it becomes, like interacting with each other, that's when the neuronal connections are firing at all cylinders. So whatever I learn here is going to help my progress in Duolingo. Whatever I learn in Duolingo is going to help my progress in WaniKani, or it's going to affect the progress. And help meaning it's going to make it more sentimental. Help as in not necessarily make things faster or slower, but more it makes me want to learn more. It keeps me consistent. So the way I'm grouping now, this technique that I'm grouping, it's from Duolingo. Duolingo does not provide contextual relevance to all the terms, and over like a month or two, I compensated, or I integrated a bit of myself. This is called construct, mechanical constructing, and I currently refer to this as a construct for active recall. So I construct a line of thinking, and then I recall it. And now WaniKani, with all its additional mnemonics, is providing things to add to the layer of construction. So in the future, I will probably end up going much faster in both cases, since I didn't stop using Duolingo and I don't compartmentalize Duolingo from WaniKani. When you're learning, you're using all of these things at the same time, unless you don't, which then that can be very difficult for me to empathize. I hope it's not quite the answer. The answer would probably say yes. I do think it'll be easier for me to progress in WaniKani considering my Duolingo process. And I think it's also true the other way around. I think that's the most reasonable conservative response I can have. If I'm learning with two different things, it's often the progression is helpful or quote unquote easier on my mental state. Like I'm expending less energy because I'm using more than one tool. If I'm doing more than one thing if I'm reducing the amount of aid, then it becomes harder. And what I mean by easy and harder is generally the expenditure, the input of energy. And the input of energy. When you use more tools, your energy input goes down because the tools are compensating for that thing. Now, when you say, is it easier for me to progress? right? Progression could be measured in how much you learn. Then the answer is no. I would actually learn less if things get easier. However, I'm not going to let that happen. When I have more tools, I have to compensate, as in I have to put in just as much effort. Like I want to meet a effort criteria. So yes, WaniKani provides me with mnemonics. I do not stop making mnemonics on top of WaniKani's mnemonics. If WaniKani is providing me with something, I also need to use it constructively so that I can take advantage of it. I'm not the biggest fan, for myself personally, of passive learning. When you are passively learning, you are, in my opinion, more likely to look at this, and this is your progress. This is all you can learn. And the only thing you can learn is whatever's in these tabs, right? Whatever they say, you're taking wholesale. There's no value beyond what it can elicit. And that is largely the bane of apps. Apps give you the impression that you trust all the things that they offer without an incentive to be creative about it. In fact, I actually think WaniKani and both WaniKani and Duolingo, by their design, right, often does not say, hey, have you tried? WaniKani has some things, and Duolingo has some things that encourage creativity, like phrases like picture. Do you see it now? Do you see it now? Picture your most hated person, right? That type of thing, it leads to the reinforcement of the mnemonic. So WaniKani does do that naturally due to Ko's writing, and Duolingo does too. What they do is they offer personas. However, the personas, and like this, both of these are the subjective nature of engaging in the person's effort. So if you do not resonate, right, you don't care about it, then it's gonna miss. If you don't care about the artificial personas of Duolingo, then there's no investment process. And that investment process, in my opinion, is responsible for a lot of progress, consistent progress. And if you don't resonate with, like, maybe like you find whatever code is written is very cringe, that's where I spent the earlier 30 minutes explaining. That's probably not it too. And what I'm saying here is not for everyone. I think purely analytical, objective people will find all of this superfluous. Like, it's extra. Like, you don't need to be emotionally attached to something if you have the rote memory capacity, and you're on a budget, and you need to learn a language by X amount of time. So you have to, since we're strangers and we just met, I'm trying to be as fair as possible to the stating that I don't understand your background or your objectives. It strikes me, like, I'm not trying to presume too much, but it strikes me as a comment that typically is made from an objective standpoint, which is excellent for someone who needs to evaluate a product to meet their needs. For me, this is brilliant. I enjoy it because I'm even slower, actually. I'm probably gonna say, if this slows down, which is what Gecko was trying to concede. Gecko is like, oh yeah, a Gecko likes to get quicker. They're eager to unlock more quickly. And for myself, I think it's a resonating point, but at the same time, I might not be as eager because I like goofing around. And for me, I'm that guy who takes the scenic route. So if life deviates, right, and you got a choice, I might actually take the scenic route. I'm a scenic route kind of person. And then when I come back from the scenic route, I might have this another perspective on it. I come back with stories. Streaming language learning has been a breath of fresh air for self-studying. I get to meet people like you, right, Diago, who have different preferences, and then Gecko. we are kind of similar, but at the same time, there are enough nuances between me and Gecko's preferences that we'll talk about for a long time. And then Valentine, right? And then Valentine. Aha no mae wa jo desu. Yeah. Wait, are you serious? Wait. You're just joking, right? You're just joking, Valentine, right? Right? Sorry if I have to also say that hopefully I didn't hopefully no one is offended by like Joanne being someone's mother. Joe Mama though. Joe Mama. Hello there, Valentine. Okay, so that's the end of today's session. It went a little longer than I expected, which is the most wonderful time of the year. It's more that I'm not committing quite as much time as you are to this endeavor, and although I have absolutely no objective deadlines, I do wish to see results in your lifetime. I see. So we do have a difference in commitment here as well. I already have results. So we're talking about like goal oriented versus process oriented. I'm a little biased, right? I'm heavier in the process oriented than towards goals. And a comment like that tells me that your goals make precedence on your decision making, right? As opposed to how much time. If I spend 10 minutes, those are results for me. If I spend 20 minutes, so my commitment, my time is a reflection of the opportunities for emergent experiences. Your construction method is very interesting. I do think of myself as being way less creative. I did begin handwriting kanji. Ooh. Oh, you gotta tell me that. However, which helps you remember. Yes, I love writing kanji. If you, better yet, I know this is a slow process, and it slows you down actually. So it can be an off-putting, it can be an off-putting experience at first. However, one thing of writing, this is my personal experience. Sometimes when you're going very fast, and you're like, I just gotta hit all these kanji as quick as possible. When you start writing, in my opinion, it slows your thought down, and it helps you focus on something else other than the meaning itself. It's like in sound and whatnot, but it integrates with that. And what I mean by that is you start noticing things like, what the heck is this character? And I'm sure everyone already noticed I write my eights like this, and then you start thinking, and then they actually explained it in WaniKani. They explained why it's written this way, and that type of thing in the long run, it could help you memorize it. So, and I understand the word creative sometimes is like a generality that people don't. People feel maybe a little bit. I feel, hear me out here. I think when someone says they lack creativity, try not to underestimate yourself. In my opinion, like, this is personal. It's more like a encouragement. Like I like when someone says they lack creativity. My whole goal is I'm gonna double down and like try to shove creativity into your mouth because I think you're very creative, right? Because human beings, creativity. And what I mean by that is writing kanji for all intents and purposes, like from a pragmatic standpoint, is now a creative process, right? People start at different places in their creative process. When you start to write, when you don't typically write, that involves a construction process. Like you have to construct how your hand is going to create this thing, and that interaction leads to problem solving and creative thinking, and your memory likely, right? I'm not making guarantees. There's no life hacks here. The idea is you're increasing your holistic approach. You're increasing your holistic approach to interacting with the thing. And for me, I think writing started 30 days in because largely I liked that Duolingo already introduced the writing thing. I'm like, oh yeah, so I'm just going to do it this in the beginning and in the end. Which, by the way, this is why I write on screen when I'm talking and drawing arrows and whatnot. I come from a traditional education background, like a formal education background. So most of my talks deal with either a PowerPoint next to a laser pointer, or I have to design graphics so that it points to things as I'm talking, or I'm literally on the board and writing. It's another way to integrate with my memory, and it does slow you down in terms of the raw, right? If you're talking about raw count, yes, I would agree. However, now the raw count involves some other dimension. So I'm not saying that someone who can write and read is greater in value, right? In value than someone who can maybe somewhat write, tiny write through reproduction of their reading abilities. However, the idea is you can get to value in very different perspectives, right? And I would love to hear all the little idiosyncrasies that you've developed while handwriting kanji. But those things are really fun. I'm a collector of stories, or at least I like to become a collector of stories. And one day when someone says, man, do you have any other ideas? Like I have all these ideas. I've tried all these ideas. What is another idea that you can come up with? And oftentimes, honestly, one of the first steps that doesn't cross someone's mind is to write kanji. And you don't have to write kanji for the rest of your life. The idea is it's stimulating your another approach, and that approach could lead back to something. Here's one thing. When you write kanji, when I go and search for a character, like what is the character for big, I actually see myself writing that kanji. Like what I mean is if I have nothing to go on, like I forgot what the read was, I forgot what the sound was, but I feel like my hand wants to move in this direction. And that's big. So call it untapped potential. It could be a diminished return. I think diminished return is something you want to consider for your own personal motivation, right? I can tell you from my personal experience, about 150 or so people now that I've interacted with in 2024, the vast majority do not write kanji. So they make the argument that it's typing, and that's perfectly reasonable, right? They probably got a lot more kanji in while I was writing the kanji, right? The time I spent writing kanji, I'm extracting something else that does not hold value to the people who choose not to write kanji. And that's all right, right? That's all right. So there you go. I talk about this stuff all the time, but I do have to do a Neverwinter thing. So I'm probably gonna bring most of this commentary and whatnot to Neverwinter. And here's a big deep cut here. Today I played Neverwinter. Neverwinter is a game that most people don't play anymore, and it's like it represents something else, and it's a live service game, and I'm actually learning zero most of the time from it. It's when I'm enjoying something that I've practiced so much that I probably could do most of the things blindfolded. However, however, with that time, I'm free to think about something that's unrelated. So now a lot of times after I cover the initial Neverwinter stuff, I want to complete the task. However, I utilize my time in a different way. I talk about language learning. In fact, when I walk around and explore Neverwinter again, I'm literally asking myself, what the heck is a sword in Japanese? Or like, how would you express a halfling to a Japanese person? Ban hito? Ban no hito? Half ling? You know, like half nin? Ning? Nin? You know, half nin? Or han, sorry, han. I'm using Chinese now. So han, right? Han hito? Han no hito? Anyways, those are the things that I think about now. And it's every part of my life. So if you want to keep Japanese near to dear to heart and you don't have a friend to speak, you can integrate most of the things you learn into your life and be creative about it. I sound like a broken record. You are very creative. Actually, oftentimes I don't try to gaslight people, or I try to be apprehensive and conservative. Conservative about being presumptuous about other people. The one thing I understand about the human condition is that humans are creative beings. Otherwise, ChatGPT is going to replace you. I'm kidding. Sorry. I had to make a topical argument. Do not try not to underestimate how creative you can be. I think that's a human condition that 99.9% of the time when you're doing something voluntarily is remarkably positive. It's a positive experience. Like, it's rarely a negative experience, even with depression, right? Or chronic problems. Chronic depression, what is a creative process that is inherently positive even in that dark situation? Music, art, writing. So don't underestimate your creativity. Sorry, now I sound like a motivational speaker. Sometimes you just gotta kick the kids in the butt and say, get that nonsense out of your head. As far as I know, you're a human being. I love to do that when walking the street or driving. Yes, having attempts at imaginary conversations. Yeah. Like, sometimes I even ask myself, oh, dude, when I walk outside, there's so many keys around, right? And I'm like saying, wait, there's so many keys around. And I look in my pockets like, can I make a joke about keys and trees? Because when you go out and you're like, oh, that's a key, right? That's a key. It's like, all right, we're done with this. Let's get a little bit more creative. Let's try to see if I can say a word pun in Japanese. Not that it's accurate or anything. The idea is, so kage, kage. How do I relate kage to key in a joke? That's what I was thinking about. No cap. I go out on a run. I go out to run the first thing I do is I get up and I go out for a run. And if you see the same thing over and over again, the last thing you want to happen is that experience becomes incredibly boring, mundane, mediocrity. You become less and less interested. So what can I bring to the table? Well, I've been learning Japanese for almost a year now. We gotta do something about it. And then, I brought Japanese in and I'm like, okay, well, I know this stuff now. How do I make it so that I remember other things other than ki? Oh, ki sounds like ki, which is kage. So now, like maybe later down the road during Inktober, when someone sees me draw a tree, like this, you'll know exactly what I mean. And if they don't know, someone's going to ask me, can you explain why you drew a tree like this? Do I got a story for you? And this is my mnemonic for how to remember ki being ki while it's kage. Oh no, kage, yeah. You know? That kind of thing. I don't even know if it's kage. Is it kage? No, it's not. Wait, is it? It's not kage. That's shadow. Kagi, sorry, Kagi. Kagi. Maybe, well, now that I made that error, I'm gonna draw. Eventually I'm gonna have to put a shadow on here, right? So this is Kage. Right? We have Kage, Kagi, and Ki. And then now we can also draw it using the characters. So how do we get Ki into here? I could make the leaves like this. This is like, if you think this is crappy art, good, because I know you could do this too. Right? If you say you're not creative, you're not artistic, I'm sure you are. Please believe me. And then, I've already drawn the key, but we can add more shadows, like we can do undertones here to give it a little layer. I would probably use a different color, but you could add some undertones. And then we would need highlights, which I can't do here, but that's kind of the idea. So mnemonics, get creative. And one day you're going to be like, wait, I can't unhear this now. What the heck, right? Like maybe in another 3 months or so, I'm gonna ask Gecko. You remember when I was making a comment about Kage, Kagi, and Ki? Like, guess what it is now? And it's gonna be something different. It's probably gonna have like 3 to 4 more terms or something in it, and I might be able to explain it in Japanese. You just don't know. So, and this seems so wild. You're like, how are these things related? Let me explain. Right? That kind of thing. And I'm trying to figure out how Ko is doing this, right? And it's a mystery. It's a mystery novel. I'm actually more interested in Ko's representation of their mnemonics than the kanji itself. That's fun and thematic as trees do keep growing. Oh, true. Oh man, you could make yeah. Wow. We could add we could even literally add grow. Actually, I don't know what grow is. What is the Japanese to grow? Oh, kairu. Oh, to sprout. Oh, interesting. Or I think I remember cultivate. Hayasu. Yeah, hayasu. And then there was something else. There was another one in Shashinko that dealt with like fruits and vegetables. Oh, here it is. Oitatsu. Oitatsu. Interesting. There you have it, folks. Smile, creative. It could be cringy. If you're worried about someone being upset or like think your thing is not creative, I'm not that kind of person. So if you have stories and stuff, give me them. You know, like invest in yourself and find interest in what you're doing, and then tell someone who is interested. You can probably find them. If not, I'm okay. Like, you'll know where to find me. Share it. You should make those drawings for every new mining, send them to Tofugu to incorporate. Hear me out here. They are more than welcome. However, I think they also have pretty awesome artists and concept writers on Tofugu. I really like how Tofugu did their like beginner PDF or the kana, and one of them did actually have this particular key in mind. Actually, they use this key analogy for a lot of their grammar stuff too. So it's pretty cool. And maybe one day we could do like some interesting things. In October, when I'm drawing, I only draw in the month of October, and it's called Inktober. So this year I will be drawing these mnemonics. So my theme for this year, because I'm going to start WaniKani and tomorrow's special Chinese companion, we're going to collect as many mnemonics as we can, and we're going to make an attempt in drawing. And the drawings will be, I'm not even sure what kind of theme we're going to do. I have drawn quite a bit now. This will be the 5th year that we're doing Inktober. And to give you an idea of what Inktober is, you get a prompt. It's like a 1-word prompt, right? It's a 1-word prompt. It could be like navigation, and then you're supposed to draw something about navigation. And it's one every single day. That's what I do for Halloween. When people are doing Halloween, I draw a prompt every single day. And we have this collection. It's available. You could see me do start to finish, like conceptual, conception to the finish. And it sucked at first. I'm gonna tell you, like, it's tough. It's exhausting. My mind is racing, but my body was, exhausted, that kind of thing. However, it's totally a wonderful thing. Draw these things for yourself. This is kanji, in my opinion. This is kanji. So it goes without saying, my favorite part oftentimes is this aspect of ideogrammic language, right? I was illiterate in any form of ideogrammic language before I started Japanese. And now we're about, I'm going to say, 1500. Oh, no, it's more like 1800 between Chinese and Japanese. And then we're going to say about 800 to 900 unique in Chinese, and then 550 in Japanese. So this is a fun story. When someone, Yomama no ko ni, or kuchi ni irimashita. What the? Or hairi. Wait, I guess it would be hairimashita, right? For entering in intransitively, or cucumbers. Cucumbers were involved too. I apologize. I think I should go to bed. Okay. All right. All right. I'll let you guys hit the sack and go about doing your thing. I'm gonna switch gears now, but thank you for that. Oh my gosh, Joe Mama. You probably say hairimashita too. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Man, Joe Mama no kuchi ni hairimashita. Oh my god. All right. Okay. All right. You guys were wonderful. Thank you again for stimulating my talk. And come back, you know, challenge me or do something, you know, share your challenges, your thoughts. If they're well thought out, right? We will like people benefit together when you're investing in discussion. I understand that this is not very possible most of the time, right? If you're watching YouTube, you can't really interact with someone. And then if a content, like a streamer has a bunch of people spamming all the time, like they're very popular and stuff, you can't have that. For the moment, though, we can, or at least I'm able to, and I certainly wouldn't trade it, right, for now, at the moment. If something changes, we'll step up, right? Step up to the moment. Anyways, thank you. We're ending our WaniKani session today. There you have it, folks. Wonderful. You're leaving now, but very nice. Yes, it was a pleasure. It was a pleasure. Hajime mashita. Hajime mashita. Right. Oh, not hajime mashita. Oh, wait, it is. Oh, yoroshiku. Sorry, yoroshiku. Hajime. Yoroshiku. Yoroshiku. And hopefully good luck with everything. Well, on that fun note, yes, yoroshiku onegai is that how you onegai shimasu? Stay. Okay. All right, folks. Mata ne. Ja ne. If you're gonna watch this later, arigatou gozaimasu. Right. And I'm gonna quickly switch gears here. Give me a moment.